In regard to British TV, there's been a lot of crossover, where different shows and characters will make its way across the pond. Of course, there are some obvious examples like Doctor Who, The Thick of It, and The Office. Shows that broke through and even spawned massively successful remakes. There's also shows like Mr. Bean, Father Ted, Peep Show, Red Dwarf, and The In-Betweeners. And that's barely scratching the surface of the amazing shows and characters that have come from the UK and the surrounding areas. But apart from a few exceptions, most of these shows had a rather short shelf life, relatively. Not everything can have the longevity of something like Doctor Who, but for going on 30 years, one man has managed to consistently entertain in various form and fashion. But many may not even know his name, or even his iconic catchphrase. Aha! Today we'll be exploring the complicated yet fascinating history of a character who would start as a side character in a news radio parody and expand into a larger world of success, failure, bouncing back, chat, and laughs. This is Alan Partridge.
Aha!
Aha! And welcome to the channel. Knowing me, the one nerd, knowing you, the audience, and I want to welcome you to this retrospective of the man, the myth, the legend, Alan Partridge. The story of Alan Partridge starts in 1991, with a British radio show called On the Hour, hosted by comedian Christopher Morris.
It's 11:20. This is On the Hour.
On the hour.
Such is politics.
It's a painful business.
On the hour.
What you mustn't do in politics is listen to people.
It's a painful business.
On Radio 4.
Such is politics.
Well, the Germans have always been unenthusiastic about parallel currencies.
On the hour with Christopher Morris.
Good morning.
On the Hour was a surreal parody of radio news shows, as well as other aspects of radio. It would have an odd mix of fake news stories, on-the-street reporter segments, and special segments highlighting various satirical aspects of culture.
What do you find most useful about the top-rated newsarama that is On the Hour?
Breakfast television news.
No, On the Hour.
Don't really know, to be honest.
You've got the answer wrong. What you mean to say is you listen to it all the time.
Yeah, I do.
Good. And furthermore, if you were captured and held for 5 years in a foreign jail, you would listen to it all the time.
Certainly would.
Say, I would listen to On the Hour all the time.
I would listen to it on the hour all the time and look forward to it.
Thank you. And as you lay chained to the wall, kicking about in the straw and filth, what would be your one ray of hope?
Just to listen to that news.
What's its name?
On the hour.
On the Hour.
On the hour, yeah.
On the Hour.
On the hour.
On the Hour.
On the hour is the name of the program.
The name of the program which you would listen to at all times,
Is On the Hour.
which you'd have nailed to your head.
Yeah.
While the show had many reoccurring newscasters, including Rosie May, environmental reporter, and Peter Hanrahan, a grossly incompetent economic reporter, there was one character who would stand out among the rest, a young sports reporter named Alan Partridge.
This is Sports Desk. I'm Alan Partridge. Formula One driver Nigel Mansell gave up motor racing this week as it's too dangerous. And anyway, claims Mansell, I can get the same sensation by sitting in a wind tunnel with dark glasses on and a paper bag of agitated wasps tied over my head.
Alan was played by comedian Steve Coogan, who at the time had played the character in various forms in college radio shows. Alan Partridge would host Sports Desk, where he would report on various sporting events. Although listening to him, it's clear that he knew little to nothing about the sports themselves, not seeming to understand the basic rules of each sport.
Well, Graham Gooch, all out for 36. That was quick, you must be pleased.
No, it's the lowest score on record, actually, Alan. We're very disappointed.
I heard talk in the shower room that you had trouble in the groin department.
No, my groin is functioning 100%, thank you, Alan. 100%.
Golf news now.
Steve Coogan would play various other one-off characters in the show throughout the two-series run of 12 episodes. But Alan clearly had more potential, at least according to the series producer, Armando Iannucci, who encouraged Steve to develop the character more. And after On the Hour ended in 1993, the character spun off into his own Radio 4 show, and he would start to show signs of the character we would all know and love.
Oh, please, please. Shh. Welcome to Knowing Me, Knowing You. Knowing me, Alan Partridge. Knowing you, the audience. Here in the studio, or you, the listener at home, in the car, or somewhere else, but with a radio.
In 1993, Alan would get his own show in the form of radio chat show parody Knowing Me, Knowing You, named after the ABBA song of the same name. The song also gave the show its opening theme, as well as Alan's initial catchphrase, "Aha," which he would yell at the start of each episode and incorporate into each episode when introducing each guest.
Knowing me, Alan Partridge. Knowing you, Lawrence Camley. Aha. Welcome.
In Knowing Me, Knowing You, Alan would chat and interview various guests from different aspects of society, all of which were played by former co-hosts of On the Hour. Much like his time on Sports Desk, audiences would discover Alan to be woefully unprepared for his interviews, not seeming to understand the point of chat, with many questions falling flat and going nowhere.
The Nobel Prize for Literature. You never won it. What went wrong?
You are an extraordinary man, Mr. Partridge.
The radio series would only last 6 episodes, as well as a 7th mockumentary-style episode, which would depict the behind-the-scenes of this in-universe show and its writers.
Monday, 1:30 p.m. Alan and Pat have gone for a pub lunch.
Yeah, jumbo sausage and mash, please.
Jumbo.
Don't mind him, he's just trouble.
Okay.
Thank you. Funnier things happen in life than they do in comedy programmes.
It's not, I mean, Knowing Me, Knowing You is not a comedy programme, but Alan has that sort of comic ability. You know,
say,
and he can...
listen, it's only radio, mate, it's not life and death. You know,
Exactly.
it's just a job.
Alan takes the edge off any issue, and that's really important, you know.
It makes people feel relaxed. You know, if you're dealing with someone who's a hostage, or if we had
He
someone
just
who
takes
was
the seriousness out of
dying
life.
of a terminal illness,
Yeah.
if you make a gag, people relax. They don't mind talking about it. That's the important thing.
But while the show was short-lived, it would be merely a pilot for bigger things to come. The next step for Alan in 1994 would funnily be a step back, as the On the Hour radio program would be adapted for BBC television as The Day Today.
Welcome. On The Day Today tonight, David Owen emerges shattered from Oliver Reed.
I don't think I've ever seen anything quite such, so totally wanton, ghastly, mess, terrible.
And Portillo's wife defends crack habit.
It's cheap, very cheap.
Hello, you.
Many segments and characters from the radio show would return, including Rosie May,
Man has finally harnessed the cooling power of worms to drive a fridge. The worms inhabit an internal piping system cooling everything as they go. Cramming in more worms lowers the temperature. Worms. I'm Rosie May. My milk is green. Come drink me.
and Peter O'Hanrahan.
And what about that quote you attributed to him? I don't like it, but I'll have to go along with it.
That's what he said.
How did he say it?
I don't like it, but I'll have to go along with it.
In German, how did he say it?
Ich nichten lichten.
And of course, back on sports, would be Alan Partridge. Much like before, Steve Coogan would play other characters on the show, but Alan would be given more time to shine. We would not be given much more in the way of character development, except possibly to show a little more of his ego and self-assuredness that was shown in the radio chat show.
So lie down, relax, and let the sports commence. When it's cycling championships you're after, you can't say fairer than the Tour de France.
Di Brandauer there in the lead, swaying from side to side in his own inimitable bike-riding way. Klaus Bin there on the inside, pumping away with those gristle-like muscly legs inside those tight lycra shorts, which have become his trademark. And I don't know what this man is playing at. There's no way. Surely the judges must come down like a ton of bricks on that. Carrying bikes on top of a car is not a sportsmanlike way to run this race. You join me in the helicopter now as we look down on these cyclists that look somehow like cattle in a mad way, but cattle on bikes. And there's Sven Gunsen, closely followed by his great friend and teammate Klaus Bin. And the man with the bikes on his car is, yes, he's disqualified, as I said. And Klaus Bin there wins, riding non-handed. No need for that.
Luckily, in the same year, Alan would get another bite at the chat apple.
Welcome to Knowing Me, Knowing You with me, Alan Partridge, live from BBC Television Centre. You better believe it, babe, there's a new chat in town.
Knowing Me, Knowing You would be given a BBC TV adaptation in the same way as The Day Today. And like The Day Today, it would be a sort of remake or expansion of the original. One of the few reasons I did not cover the first radio show in depth is because it really was a pilot of sorts for the show, to the point where several jokes and segment premises are reused. For example, Alan is hypnotized.
Now, Alan, would you tell me how old you are?
I'm 8 years old.
And where are you at the moment?
I'm at the bottom of Tandle Hill.
Where's Tandle Hill?
It's near the school.
Excellent. Now, whenever you hear the word aha, I want you to be a little scary monster. Aha.
Alan does a show in a different country with a co-host from the area. On the radio show, it's in Las Vegas. On the TV show, France.
I thought you French were good at chatting. I thought that's all you did all day, sitting outside your brasseries, sipping your cappuccinos, chomping on onions and going oh-hee-haw-hee-haw.
Oh, come on.
Well, now you're just being racist.
That is not racist. French people chomp on onions and go oh-hee-haw-hee-haw. That's a fact.
Alan sings.
Rita, you and I know.
You see the stars, Fernando.
The winner takes it all.
Mamma mia! Here I go again.
I have a dream.
Gimme a man of the midnight.
And both shows end with a similar event we'll touch on later. But while the radio show seems to be sort of a throwaway at the time, it would end up being important and incorporated into the wider Alan canon, so it's important to acknowledge it. The TV version, however, would be an important starting point, and it's the show that makes the most sense to start with. Although, curious newcomers should of course check out the previous radio show, as well as On the Hour and The Day Today. Getting back to the show, the first episode will start with a high note, as Alan announces his first major guest of the show is former 007 actor Roger Moore, and that he's on his way to the studio. In the meantime, we are introduced to Glenn Ponder, the resident band leader of Knowing Me, Knowing You, who leads a band with an ever-changing name.
Great to have you aboard, Glenn.
Well, it's great to be here.
We're really looking forward to it. Sorry?
Sorry.
Glenn Ponder. Glenn Ponder and Chalet.
Glenn and Alan have a rather awkward relationship, with Alan trying to both be his friend as well as lord over him as his boss. This would culminate in the reveal that Glenn is in fact gay, which needless to say, Alan did not take well.
Well, my boyfriend's a bit of a cordon bleu, and it was his idea, really. His idea.
I didn't know. Take me down, please.
Yeah, well, he needed a bit more space, you know, and thought, what the hell, let's splash out, you know?
Conversation's finished now.
You can come round for a meal sometime.
No, thanks.
Don't try, you'd be very welcome.
No, that's all right. So, can we get this quicker? So I'll jump the last couple of feet, if that's right.
He would also be fired rather early in the series, only to be hired back pending a firing tribunal, which I assume is a thing that the UK has.
You're sacked. You are sacked. I'm sacking you. In fact, it's happened. It's over. It's already you are a sacked man. You've been sacked. You're the subject of a sacking. I want you off these premises in 10 minutes. Knowing me, Alan Partridge, sacking you, Glenn Palmer.
Alan's first actual guest is a bit of a flop, that being Sue Lewis, a show jumper, or horse rider, who does not lend well to chat on a show like this.
Now, you won the hearts of the British public when last year you trotted off with the World Championship.
Yes.
How did that feel?
Oh, great.
Really?
Really great.
Right, yeah. And was your horse, Joie de Vivre, was he aware of the excitement?
Oh, yes.
What did you give him a treat afterwards?
Yes.
What?
This leads to an attempt to Alan to save the segment with a live horse jump on stage, which of course is impossible, and ends with the Hort taking a shit on stage, something that lingers for the rest of the episode.
Now, could someone clear that shit away, please? It's just I can see, it's in my picture. I don't.
Quickly moving on, Alan brings on his guest, Keith Hunt, the new host of the show This Is Your Life.
Knowing me, Alan Partridge, knowing you, Keith Hunt. Aha.
Aha. Am I right?
Yeah. This comes to a head with Alan bringing out Keith's estranged son and exposing him as having a bad relationship with him and taking him down a peg.
And Sam, we'll have a fun day out. Take you to the footy.
No, isn't there something else you want to say to him?
You see your dad on the telly last week?
No. Sam, do you want to tell your daddy?
It's my birthday.
It's your son's birthday!
Yes! Yes, happy birthday, Sam.
What have you got for him? So, no, Keith, stay there, you know the law. Do horses have birthdays?
Yes, they do.
Do you get them presents?
Sometimes.
Really? Even horses? even horses?
Next would be a musical guest, which at first seems to be a wholesome band with a wholesome girl singer, but it quickly turns.
Monday morning at 7:45, she gives her husband his cornflakes. He mustn't be late. She vacuums the carpets, makes everything clean. Everything clean. What would she do without Mr. Sheen? She takes a shotgun from under the stairs and stands in the hallway screaming her prayers. The gas man comes to read the meter. He writes down the reading, scratching his head. It's 4:45, and now the gas man's dead.
The first show ends with Alan attempting to save the show by hyping up Roger Moore, only to discover at the very last minute that he's not going to be able to make it.
Let me stop you in your tracks there, Keith Hunt. You can eat your hat now because, ladies and gentlemen, I can confirm Roger Moore is on the show. We're having him on the show right now, live by telephone link-up from the car on a mobile phone. Hello, Roger. Hello, Roger.
Hello, Alan.
Oh.
This would be a pattern for the show, a series of awkward guests and failed segments that show more and more the true purpose of the show, to prop up Alan. This is shown by things like Alan's name getting increasingly bigger in each episode, naming segments after himself, unnecessary segments to showcase himself and his lifestyle.
The first look is what you'd wear to drive to Paris. It's called Cruiser Arriviste. Canary yellow shirt, horizon blue Stay Crease action slacks, cap, Polaroids, tan stringback driving gloves. It's a look that says, I'm in control of my vehicle.
And giving away merch like the Alan Partridge tie and blazer badge combo packs, and a plastic mask made of his face.
However, last week, these fun items were abused. Take a look at these pictures from a security camera. Nat West, Sycamore Road, Corby, on Tuesday last, when 3 masked gunmen wearing My Rubber Face burst in. Then they ran off with £15,000 in a copper-coloured sports holdall. I wish to dissociate myself from this act. My face was designed as a leisure accessory.
However, in the last episode of the series, Alan is set to interview his future replacements in his time slot, the ratings of which started poorly and went downhill from there. But his very last guests would be the most memorable of his career, and end his first ever solo television series on, let's say, a bed.
Wheezing, rasping din they make. Be careful with that.
Oh my God! What happens now? What happens now?
Is there a doctor somewhere?
It's not my fault. It wasn't my. I didn't know it was loaded.
Could everybody stay?
I didn't know it was loaded.
In the last minutes of the last episode of Knowing Me, Knowing You, Alan Partridge shot a man through the heart with antique pistols brought by the guest himself, who had just bought them at an auction out of spite. Normally, something like this would be a definite death knell for any television career, but Alan would get one more chance, a sort of Christmas miracle, if you will.
Knowing me, knowing you, la-ha, there is nothing we can do. Knowing me, knowing you.
Aha. What is Christmas? It's a little robin redbreast petrified by the wind. It's an orphan in a blanket being helped into a shed. And it's a snowman whose nose carrot has been stolen and subsequently eaten by a gypsy thief.
Apparently in the contract for Knowing Me, Knowing You, it was negotiated that there would also be a Christmas special, and despite a manslaughter investigation, the show must go on. Titled as Knowing Me, Knowing Yule, the special would take place in an immaculately recreated mock-up of Alan's real house in Norwich. In another massive ego trip by Alan, to not only make the special as big as it could be, but to make himself look as big as he could be in a desperate grab for a second series. One way he would accomplish this is by having the new head of programming at the BBC as a central guest of the show, with very awkward results, as it's clear the only reason he's there is to pressure him for a new series order.
Just tell us what you're going to do at the BBC.
Right, well, I will be looking at our output very carefully. We live in a market economy, and the BBC should be no exception. That's how I see it. So every programme will have to justify itself, and if it's a lame duck, it may have to go.
Well, let me assure you that Knowing Me, Knowing You with Alan Partridge is a very healthy duck with plenty of legs. So you can axe any show you like, as long as you tell me I'm going to get a second series. Please, please tell me I've got a second series, boss. Do you want to do that? Just to clear the air? I know this is not really the time.
No, it's not really the time.
But the rest of the guests weren't faring any better, including a rogue Christian bell ringer who attempts to draw attention away from Alan to talk about Christ at Christmas.
It's really nice that we're here to celebrate Christmas. This is a Christmas show, and it's celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ and his incarnation as a human being.
No, it's not. It's Knowing Me, Knowing You with Alan Partridge.
And Christ.
Christ isn't in the title.
We would also see another appearance of Glenn Ponder as a MIDI band leader, as well as the first appearance of his boyfriend, who, still being a little bit uncomfortable, attempts to try and show his tolerance for him.
Well, Glenn, did you have a nice Christmas?
Oh, quiet. We just stayed in, didn't we?
you want some mulled wine?
Oh, no thanks, Alan. I'm fine.
Right. Does your friend Andy want some?
No, I'm fine, thanks. No, Andy's fine.
Right, well, if he wants some, you just let me know.
This would be the first real sign of an ongoing character development he would have, where he would be clearly a right-wing thinker, but wear the skin of left-leaning politics in order to succeed in the media, which is, let's face it, pretty liberal anywhere you go. This would be tested by cross-dressing comedian / TV chef Fanny, who would spend the special making innuendo jokes, sometimes at Alan's expense, who would shake it off to a point.
Basically, just to explain, we all know what Fanny Thomas does. She cooks lovely food and she makes innuendos. Fanny, what are you cooking?
Oh, roast partridge. Do you want stuffing?
Yes, please.
You don't look the type. Oh, pardon.
That sort of thing.
The special would also be filled with even more attempts to heighten his profile, including another pre-recorded segment where he would show off his newfound fame and an attempt at charity work.
It's been a busy few days. What better way to unwind than at Tandy's? I've got a special arrangement with their Norwich branch, who let me into their store after they're closed to the general public. If you're a well-known celebrity, Christmas shopping can be an absolute nightmare. So it's always nice to mooch around without fear of being threatened or pickpocketed. Nice action.
Which also includes the main event of the special, in attempting to set the world record for the world's biggest Christmas cracker for charity, with his face on it, of course. And his sneaky attempt to use the special as a big ad for the Rover, hiding ads in various segments, and even having a Santa played by the local Rover dealer.
Mike, I heard recently that Norfolk Rover are offering 0% finance on selected models this season. Is that true?
That's absolutely true, Alan. The snowy weather has enabled us to freeze the prices on the whole of the Rover 600 series.
Right.
But, Alan, I understand you have a Rover Vitesse Fastback.
Yes, I do.
And what is it you particularly like about it?
Well, apart from the walnut and leather interior, which I think really does give it luxury car status, the thing that impressed me most was the overall economy.
Much like his show, this special would quickly deteriorate, with Alan snapping and punching out a few of his guests, including a man in a wheelchair and his current soon-to-be former boss with a chicken.
Listen, my wife left me on Christmas Eve. I spent Christmas Day all on my own here. Well, not here, this is a mock-up.
This is a disgrace. I'm going to make sure you never work on television again.
Please don't take my chat away from me. Is there anything I can say or do that will make you change your mind?
No.
In his seemingly final moments on TV, Alan would reveal that his wife had recently left him the previous day. And this was essentially him having a mental breakdown, which seems like it would be a sort of a perfect end to Alan's story and his journey. But little did we know, this was only the beginning.
That was Big Yellow Taxi by Joni Mitchell, a song in which Joni complains that they paved Paradise to put up a parking lot. A measure which actually would have alleviated traffic congestion on the outskirts of Paradise, something which Joni singularly fails to point out, perhaps because it doesn't quite fit in with her blinkered view of the world. Nevertheless, nice song. It's 4:35 a.m. You're listening to Up with the Partridge. Aha! The string back just gives you a bit of extra purchase.
2 years after Knowing Me, Knowing Yule, Alan would return to TV by returning to radio in the form of the BBC Two show, I'm Alan Partridge. This time, the show was a multi-camera sitcom with an audience laugh track, which saw Alan returning to his hometown of Norwich to host a radio show named Up with the Partridge, a graveyard shift show aired late at night.
That was Orchestral Manoeuvres in the Dark with some classic electro rock from their album Architecture and Morality. Two subjects I'm sure we could discuss all night. Indeed, the lines are open if you want to call, make a comment on either architecture or morality to equally hot but differently shaped potatoes, chips and crinkle-cut chips.
We also got some development of the last-minute news at the end of the Christmas special, with Alan's wife Carol leaving him for a fitness instructor. This, combined with his loss of the show, means he is essentially homeless and has taken up residence in a travel tavern or a hotel.
I've been living in a hotel for 26 weeks. 182 days in a travel tavern. See this? Look, sanitary bags. Right? They put these in my room every day. They know I'm a man. They keep Loose Werther's originals in them. Look at this. See this? That is 182 bottles of body lotion. I was going to sell them at a car boot sale.
We're also introduced to some new faces in Alan's life. Some that would end up appearing in future projects, including Alan's Baptist assistant, Lynn.
Now, Alan, you're going to have to trade down your River 800 for a smaller car.
Go on.
I picked up these brochures for the new Metro. It's a lovely car.
Lynn,
and if you do...
Lynn, I'm not driving a Mini Metro.
But you do have to make substantial savings.
Lynn, I'm not driving a Mini Metro.
But if you do, you can keep Pear Tree Productions going with a skeleton staff of 2.
There's no point finishing the sentence, Lynn, because I'm not driving a Mini Metro.
But if it...
Lynn, I'll just speak over you.
But
Go on, try and finish the sentence and see what I do. Go on.
With a
I'm
skeleton
not driving a Mini Metro. I'm not driving a Mini Metro.
And the hotel's handyman, Michael.
Mr. Partridge, you know, makes me wonder what it's all about.
A boot?
Aye, you know, vandals, you know. What is it all about?
Oh, about, sorry. Sometimes it's difficult to understand the Geordie people.
You know, what I reckon is that if they had themselves proper jobs, they wouldn't be up to all this, you know, larking every night.
What?
What I'm saying is that, like, if they had themselves proper jobs, you know, for the gantil, then they wouldn't date. You know, a lot of them's from broken homes.
Oh, sorry, that was just a noise.
The first episode sees Alan meeting with Towing Hares, the current head of BBC programming, to discuss the possibility of a Series 2 for his chat show, but it quickly deteriorates into random pitches for shows.
Okay, right, Alan Attack. Like the Cook Reports, but with a more slapstick approach. Arm wrestling with Chaz and Dave.
I don't think so.
Pity, because they were very keen on that one. Right, now, you like this, right? Knowing ME, knowing you. I, Alan Partridge, talk to ME sufferers about the condition. You know, we intersperse it with their favourite pop songs, make it light-hearted, you know, give them a platform. You've got to keep the energy up, because you can't... Look, you don't like it, that's all right.
No.
That's okay. Inner city sumo.
What's that?
We take fat people from the inner cities, put them in big nappies, and then get them to throw each other out of a circle that we draw with chalk on the ground.
No, it's a bad idea.
Very cheap to make. Do it in a pub car park.
No.
Cooking in prison. A partridge amongst the pigeons.
What's that?
Well, it's just a title. I mean, well, no. Opening sequence: me in Trafalgar Square, feeding the pigeons, going, "Oh God!"
No, I'm sorry. No, stop.
Youth hosteling with Chris Eubank. Monkey tennis.
When all else fails, Alan has another breakdown.
Got some cheese?
No, thank you.
It's quite nice. Smells. Do you want to smell it?
No, thank you.
Smell the cheese.
No, I don't want to.
Smell my cheese.
Alan, please. Why not?
Smell my cheese, you mother!
I think that's quite enough, thank you.
I've got cheese! This is cheese!
With the second series officially dead, Alan returned to his travel tavern where he keeps trying to boost his profile, along the way insulting farmers.
I'll tell you what. You farmers, you don't like outsiders, do you? Like to stick to your own? What do you mean by that? I've seen the big-eared boys on farms.
For goodness sake.
Dealing with a crazed fan.
Right, well, you can be David Copperfield. And I'll be Alan Partridge! Don't come back!
Not my face! I'm doing a photo shoot for Vision Express!
Getting to know the staff at the hotel.
I'm a zombie. I'm dressed as a zombie. I'm Alan Partridge.
And judging a fair.
Just put nice plums.
But the series ends with good news. A new man is in charge of the BBC who likes Alan and promises him a new series order.
Suppose you want to check the small print. Come Chris, you must have seen a dozen contracts like that. Oh, no! Oh, no. Chris?
And so ends Series 1 of I'm Alan Partridge. And we would not see him back on TV for another 5 years. With I'm Alan Partridge Series 2.
Well, I enjoyed The Hobbit more than Riverdance. And I think lots of boys on an island killing a fat boy is not so enjoyable as Gandalf with a long white beard.
OK, if you've just joined us, we're talking about who is the best Lord. Lord of the Rings, of the Dance, or of the Flies. That's tonight's Hot Topic. Hot Topic.
See you later. A lot changed in those 5 years. Alan did various gigs to stay afloat, including hosting a trashy car wreck video.
Crash! Bang! Wallop! What a video!
Hi, I'm Alan Partridge, and I drive a car, but not like this.
More recently, he released a book about bouncing back that's not doing so well. For lodging, he's actually constructing his own home, but in the meantime, he's taking up residence in a static home with his new girlfriend, a Ukrainian immigrant named Sonia.
Alan, do you want an egg in the bap?
Yes, please.
Here comes your egg in the bap.
Oh, great. Yum, yum. Oh, it's plastic. Yeah, I look back on that as an excellent practical joke. Yeah.
Along with new faces, we also have some returning, like Alan's assistant Lynn.
Right, I'm going to box her in at the squash court and drop my price. To me! Oh, I'm all right. Your airbag went off. Why didn't mine, Lynn?
I can't move my head. It's just not going. Can you see I'm trying?
Calm down, Lynn!
It's just not moving.
Calm down!
Do you understand?
Hey! Calm down, Lynn!
And Michael, who now has a job at the gas station that Alan frequents.
This is the man that runs the place. Well, he doesn't run it. He's the work Geordie.
With a dream of a new BBC series long behind him, Alan is still struggling to stay afloat and relevant, and running into issues, like injuring his foot right before a presenting job.
50 then, but I'm at least I can make 2. What? Lynn, I've pierced my foot on a spike. It really freaking hurts like... Just got some bits of casualty now.
Dealing with another crazed fan who wants Alan to swing with his wife. And trying to get out of some tax trouble.
Search me!
Oh, no, that's customs and excise, isn't it?
Right. Could we have a look at the receipts on your spike?
Yes. I have a confession to make. When I raised my legs then, something happened which was unplanned. I released an unexpected but potent gust.
The series ends with the publisher of Alan's book informing him that the thousands of unsold copies are being pulled from shelves and will be pulped. Trying to take a positive spin on it, Alan actually attends the pulping and takes a bit of the slurry home with them.
Back to the souvenir.
And he walks off into the sunset, with audiences not sure if or when we would ever see the character again.
And the fragment of a song, half remembered names and faces, but to whom do they belong? When you knew that it was over, you were suddenly aware that the autumn leaves were turning to the color of her hair.
The show was quite popular for both series, receiving several awards, including 2 Best Comedy Actor awards for Coogan himself. But after the end, Steve would take a break from the character for other pursuits. The character would pop up here and there in different charity appearances. But in 2010, the character would make a big comeback.
This country is at war with Germany.
President Kennedy and Governor John Colony were shot today.
South Africa without apartheid will be a better home for all.
Tear down this wall.
The ladies, not for turning.
Compiling a database of Norwich's least grateful buskers.
I'm Alan Partridge, and this is Mid-Morning Matters.
North Norfolk Digital.
It was announced that Alan would appear in a new digital comedy series co-produced by Australian beer company Foster's, and originally airing on their website, but would later air on TV proper on Sky Atlantic. Alan Partridge's Mid-Morning Matters would see Alan still working at the same Norwich-based studio that he had in the previous series, but it was now upgraded to a digital radio station called North Norfolk Digital, North Norfolk's best music mix. He is now, as the title suggests, in charge of the mid-morning time block, and the show would take place entirely in the studio, as Alan plays music, interviews guests, and takes calls from listeners.
Today we're talking condiments. You're stuck on a desert island, you're allowed one condiment. Which is it to be? John in Sproston.
Ketchup.
Harry in Bodham.
Mustard.
Kev in Norwich.
Gravy.
That's not a condiment, it's a hot sauce.
Bristol then.
That's a brand of gravy.
The biggest difference is that he would have a new element added to the mix, in the form of a sidekick. Known as Sidekick Simon, he would be included by management to help spice up the show, with Alan both feeling incredibly threatened by him and trying to keep him down, to also wanting him to be his friend/assistant to him.
So your middle name is Gordon, that's hilarious.
Do you mind? Gordon's actually a rather good middle name. AGP. Sounds like a motor oil. Imagine it on the side of a Formula One car.
Very manly.
It is manly, yes. It's actually terrible for Sue Cook. Her middle name's Ingrid.
Sick.
Yeah.
Well, at least the middle name isn't Ursula.
Suck. Yeah, that would be
worse.
Yes, it could be worse. It'll always be worse. Or Amanda.
Sack.
Yes. Precisely.
Well, what's rude about a sack?
Well, it's a nickname, isn't it, for ball bag. This is Enya with her Orinoco flow. Good.
We would also get a glimpse of what Alan had been up to in the meantime, including the fact that he was now dating a woman with kids, who would be referenced and even cameo in the show. Halfway through the series, Sidekick Simon would seemingly be fired and replaced by a new co-host, Zoe, a very obvious crush on, despite the fact that he's already in a relationship, as mentioned before. The two have a very awkward dynamic as Alan attempts some flirting.
Probably more like co-DJ.
Okay.
Actually, well, no, I'm the DJ. What should we call you?
A banter jockey.
Yeah.
BJ. No, that sounds a bit rude.
You're a breath of fresh air. You really are.
Along with the new show, we would also get the first of what would turn out to be 3 in-character biographies from Alan. This first one titled, I, Partridge, We Need to Talk About Alan. In this biography, Alan would detail his life and career up until a little after the events of Series 2 of I'm Alan Partridge. In the book, and subsequent audiobook, which is in a constant rotation in my own playlist, Alan gives us stories of his life and manages to bring all of his previous appearances into the canon, including both On the Hour, The Day Today, and even the radio and TV versions of Knowing Me, Knowing You. It also does a great job at filling in the gaps between the different shows and giving details that many fans may have wanted to know, including the fallout to Alan killing a man on a show, and the long stretch of time between Series 1 and 2 of I'm Alan Partridge, and what happened to Sonia. The same year, we would also see the airing of one of my favorite Alan specials, Welcome to the Places of My Life.
This is Norfolk.
It's been my home for the best part and best parts of my life, and I'd like to introduce it to you, and it to you. Over the next hour, in a co-production with the Norwich Council of Traders, I'll be going on a very emotional journey to discover who, why, and what I am. A Partridge pilgrimage, or a partridge, a pilgrimatridge, a partrimilgrimage.
Welcome to the places of my life.
Another in-universe special produced by the returning Pear Tree Productions, Places premiered on Sky in 2011, and followed Alan around various places in the Norfolk area, including the local fitness center, where Alan swims.
Morning.
Gate.
Various government buildings, and even a ski slope.
And if you think living in England's plattest county is going to stop me, you're just bloody wrong.
Did you get that?
There would also be a nice subtle through story about Alan getting some bad medical news, and the special itself being a sort of way for Alan to deal and work through his own mortality.
I'll be a few minutes. Oh, what's a chalk ice? Catch. You have that later.
I'm all right, thanks.
Oh, I'm starving. Absolutely famished.
With this new comeback going well, with new accolades coming from the new series, special, and book, Alan was riding high, so it was time for him to make a jump to an area he had never been before, the silver screen.
That was soft rock cocaine enthusiast Fleetwood Mac, and this was Alan Partridge. Love that noise. I was having a fascinating conversation with Norfolk's most sun-tanned child, just passed his details on to the social services.
Alan, we're being taken over.
So, Pat, no one's getting sacked. Just sack Pat.
Just gave me 30 minutes to clear out my locker.
Alan Partridge Alpha Papa, or just Alan Partridge in America, was Alan's first and so far only feature film to date. The film centers around Alan dealing with a hostage situation at the North Norfolk Digital Studios, after the new owners of the station fire a longtime DJ, who snaps and holds many of the higher-ups at shotgun point. Alan manages to escape the initial attack, but is sent back in by the police, as the fired DJ will only speak to Alan, believing him to be his only friend left at the station. The film would be a huge departure from other Alan content, as the character was thrown into an actual serious situation, but still handle it with a signature awkward charm. It would also see the return of a few fan-favorite characters, including assistant Lynn, sidekick Simon, who returned despite suddenly leaving Mid-Morning Matters, and even Michael, who now has a job at security at the studio, thanks to Alan. Alan would, in a lot of ways, get a rare moment of success in this movie, but as usual, he would squander it in pursuit of what little fame he could get.
He's got the shooter!
Affect the police.
Friends, Pat, friends.
It's weird.
What has happened to your hair? I take no pleasure in saying this, but a lot of people think it looks like a photograph of an explosion.
Identify yourself!
Alan.
There's footage. Alan! I'm Alan Partridge. I've not been off the TV that long. Identify yourself. I should be at home in bed watching funny videos on YouTube.
Have you seen Fat Woman Falls Down Hole?
That should be fenced off, really, but I'm glad it wasn't. It's all right, I'm not retreating. Pat's tugging me off. Now, come on, we're better than that.
After the release of the movie, the character would take a break for another 3 years, coming back with a slew of new content, including another series of Mid-Morning Matters, and a new special called Scissored Isles.
Hello. The footage I'm about to show you is of a man I don't recognise. He's a 50-something Caucasian disc jockey from the Norfolk area, and he's a man so out of touch with ordinary people that he's able to make comments as crass and offensive as these.
This special would see Alan make a few cancelable offenses, one toward a young guest implying he shagged sheep, and another at a private event making a joke about chavs, which is a derogatory term for young people of a lower social status.
Chatting with 5 chavs. So chatting with 5 chaps.
Chavs?
Not fight chavs. You come here to get away from the chavs. Off, back to your council houses.
This leads to a slight backlash, although not as severe as a presenter of a higher status, but relative to his size. So Alan embarks on a journey to understand the common people of Britain a bit better. This would lead to a day as a bagger at a local market.
But as my shift on the tills wore on, I realised something extraordinary. I was absolutely brilliant at scanning. The female side of my brain, long dormant, had somehow been re-triggered. Some said I was scanning even quicker than Tesco lifer Pat Bevan. Pat could barely conceal her rage.
Touring a local manor.
Here bears a striking resemblance to how I imagine the father of Brian May would look.
And even attempting to expose a payday lender for predatory business practices.
Why do you charge your customers extortionate rates of interest, Kevin? Why are you walking away, Kevin? I'm sure your customers would like to know why you're walking away. I'm sure your customers would like to know why you're walking past these trees, sort of looking over there for no reason.
The highlight is Alan being trapped in a warehouse after going dumpster diving with a local freegan. It's there that Alan has a time to reflect on things, and we get a first glimpse of a real vulnerable moment for him. Something that would come up again and again in future works, where he thinks back on his failed relationship with his wife.
In the 80s, I once climbed onto the roof of a bus shelter to rescue a cuddly lion I'd won for Carol at a fun fair. Some boys had thrown it up there. This is when I was still married to her. Felt like I could do anything when I was married to Carol.
The new special would also come with Alan's second biography, Nomad. This book would be both biography, which would work to fill more gaps in canon and expand on other aspects of Alan's life and career, including other TV show ideas, and his version of events of the Alpha Papa movie and its aftermath. But the main focus would be the story of Alan walking in the footsteps of his father, which would consist of a days-long walking trip to a nuclear power plant that his father had previously had a scheduled job interview for, that he never ended up attending. While his father would normally have driven this rather short journey, Alan decided to walk it, to make it more dramatic, revealing subtly that the only reason he did this walk, or wrote about it, was to get a possible TV deal out of it. The walk took much longer than it should have, due to frequent detours and stops, and by the end, he is left a broken mess and is hospitalized. But he soon leaves to make it back to his radio show on time, not wanting to risk his position. With this new contact and exposure for Alan, his stock had never been higher, being the most consistent output in years, which is, more than likely, what led to his triumphant return to the BBC in 2019, and his first real return to the chat format that made him a star to begin with.
20 seconds. Can I have a glass of water, please?
Makeup checks.
So sorry, everyone. Oh, Tony, can you just remember to tweak that?
Hi, anyone. Can I have a glass of water, please?
The end bit.
Okay, guys, stand by. We're coming on shortly.
Hey, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
You've done plenty of live stuff for him.
Yeah.
You did do that. What was it called? Mid-Morning Matters?
Yes, Mid-Morning Matters.
Mid-Morning Matters.
Oh, do you know it?
Yeah, I've watched the odd episode. I have to say I loved what I saw.
Yeah, well, it's a radio show.
That's right.
Guys, clear the floor.
Can I have some water, please? My mouth is dry.
Stand by. We're going in 5.
Can I have some water, please? My mouth is dry.
This time with Alan Partridge began with Alan working as a fill-in host for a fake parody news magazine called This Time. The previous host was off due to ongoing medical issues, which gave Alan a huge opportunity to return to the BBC spotlight. Unlike Knowing Me, Knowing You, This Time would not be presented as a full show that the audience could see. Instead, we would be presented with behind-the-scenes footage, all caught and shot with the in-studio cameras and mics, while they still rolled between segments and during commercial breaks.
We preview a programme about the plight of pint-sized seal pups. Oh, a bit of a mouthful.
More peas in it than a pensioner's pamper. Did I say that?
No, I didn't. A lot to get through.
Got it.
Alan Partridge there, who I feel we know a bit more intimately now.
Steady, missus. I've not even taken you for dinner yet.
I'm a married woman, I'll have you know.
All right, I was told you were separated.
Coming up, we'll be talking vegetarianism and gambling. But first, we preview a programme about the plight of pint-sized seal pups. Goodness, that's got more peas in it than a pensioner's pamper.
Which would give us more opportunity to see Alan's off-camera banter with his new co-host, Jenny Gresham. We would also see the return of Lynn as Alan's continuing assistant, who encourages Alan in his new endeavour, as this could be his big break and return to fame.
Oh, and hot off the news press.
Go on.
You know Greville Merchant?
What does he want?
He heard you were hosting a BBC primetime show and he collapsed.
Where was he?
In his garden.
As well, sidekick Simon makes his return as the almost third co-host for the show, who handles the big board and social media interactions.
We look at the papers, we're going to get some tweets up, and if I swipe here, we can get the Twitter feed. Hopefully we'll be able to get the Twitter feed up on my DigiWall.
Can't swipe from the home screen. You need main menu.
Right, you are. Now then.
Top left eye.
Top left. We're in, like Flynn.
While the show focused on behind-the-scenes interactions, we would still see in-studio interviews and segments with the standard Alan flair.
Actually an instructional video which shows exactly how to wash your hands.
Yes, please.
So we begin by rubbing the palms together, work up a nice creamy lather.
Those very creamy hands.
And then you rub the back of your left hand with the right palm with interlaced fingers. And same with the other hand.
Trying to make himself seem invaluable, this would pay off as the previous co-host would not only die, leaving a permanent spot open for him, but he would also be outed as a predator and a creep, which Alan sort of helps bring light to.
Tuesday night. Right, apologies if anyone saw that. The feed is unmoderated, so once again, apologies from us.
Absolutely. Are we cutting to that?
No.
Don't think we're cutting. I should read it though. It's just a tweet. It says all this BS about what a great guy John was. Passed me the sick bag.
Well,
another one says he gave me a pottery lesson and sat behind me wearing speedos and saying I'm like Patrick Swayze in Ghost.
Let's not assume that these...
person goes on to say it started off as a vase, but by the time he'd finished fondling me, it was just a very wide ashtray. Oh, that's sad.
Oh well.
Leading to Alan becoming the new permanent host of the show.
Places, people, please.
I'm in a good mood.
Only a year later, Alan would embark on another new venture, the world of podcasting.
Father. Rambler. Broadcaster.
Writer.
Presenter.
Producer.
Brand ambassador. Philanthropist. Innovator.
Singer.
Whistler. Lover. Liver. Driver. Dreamer. Schemer. Thinker. Drinker. Winker. Tinker. Investor. Walker. Talker. Reader. Leader. Jogger. Flogger. Flogger. Slogger. Flogger. Stop! I'm Alan Partridge. Nothing more, nothing less. And I refuse to be pigeonholed. I'm not a pigeon. I'm a partridge. A partridge. Alan Partridge. An ordinary guy who does extraordinary things, or an extraordinary guy who does ordinary things. Guys, I'm really confused. Help me sort through this mess by joining me for a new series of podcasts from the Oast House.
The Alan Partridge Podcast, an Audible original. Pre-order now with your 30-day trial.
From the Oast House is an Audible exclusive podcast. In fact, the show starts by pointing out the fact that in-universe this is an Audible podcast, taking place while Alan is still a tentative host on this time. But clear he's no longer working for North Norfolk Digital because of an incident involving an argument with a higher-up that ended in a heart attack. This gives us our most personal look at Alan's daily life to date, as the podcast is mostly recorded at his home, an Oast House-style home in the country. There he struggles to come up with different podcasting topics, including going on long walks in the country, where he ends up almost breaking into a man's house while playing detective, speaking to young people at a motivational speech, and in a genuinely emotional episode, sets up a sort of time capsule for his estranged grandkids, so that if he should die before he meets them, they can get to know him in some regard. Which actually ends with the grandkids coming to visit in a rare, uplifting moment in Alan's life.
Jack? Ruby? Are you Jack and Ruby? Is your name Jack? Is your name Ruby? I'm Alan Partridge, Grandad. Grand Alan Partridge. That's right. That's me. They know that thing. Fernando must have got my letter. I can't believe I'm being rescued by my grandkids. It's like the end of a really good film.
Like many such series, we'd also see new and returning faces. While Lynn does not make an actual appearance in the podcast, she is mentioned, and Alan actually enters her home to retrieve a boating show pass to discover that she's actually an amateur painter. A new recurring character, so far exclusive to the podcast, is Alan's housekeeper, Rosa. She's always heard just off in the distance, and sometimes she can barely be understood.
Rosa? Rosa, is there any sort of question that you'd like to ask me? It's all right. Go on. More money? No. I mean, ask a question about me.
If the podcast does have a story, it's the reoccurring segment of Alan dealing with a troll going by the name of High Noon, that's always finding ways to get Alan's goat, even going so far as to hand-deliver a letter to his house. The troll starts to affect Alan in both his personal and professional life, but in the end, he has the last laugh. The year after the podcast would debut, we would get Series 2 of This Time, which would see more of Alan attempting to cling to his BBC return, with segments like visiting a youth prison to understand the criminal justice system,
Tissue, item, semi-used, access key insignia with leather toggle, chicken shop wet wipes, 5 units.
I didn't want to go to a men's prison, but seeing as the women's prison didn't get back to me, I would be incarcerated here in a youth offenders institute.
For the homeless.
And the gloves?
Why?
training with special ops soldiers.
Right, well, let's have a look at the video, shall we? Yeah, this full shot, what's this stance? You're presenting a very wide target.
Yeah, that's a recognised shooting stance.
Where have you seen that before?
The opening sequence of the James Bond films.
Right, yeah.
And investigating chemsex.
Well, it's over an hour later. I've been told that one eyelid has drooped. I don't feel that much different. Am I in the mood for dancing? Absolutely. Do I feel sexy? Barely. Although I do have the sensation of wanting someone else to brush my hair.
We would also see some memorable studio segments, including interviewing a fellow journalist who would criticize Alan's previous output as being unimportant fluff, played by former Doctor Who actor Matt Smith.
A newspaper.
No. I've got nothing against you whatsoever.
Oh, good. Well, that's a relief. Because I've also written things in the heat of the moment, and then the next day you think to yourself, I didn't mean any of that. I just got carried away. Of course, I'm not going to boycott Costa Coffee and its affiliate brands.
I meant I've got nothing against you personally. I still think the show is pretty lousy.
Right.
And is a clumsy attempt by the BBC to broaden its appeal at the expense of its own journalistic standards, where once there was real analysis, now we have chit-chats about Kit Kats.
OK, chit-chat and banter came top of our viewers' demands in our focus groups.
Well, I find that...
Isn't that right, Simon? Right at the top.
Yes, just below more of Jenny.
Right near the top.
The series ends with Alan being bumped for an interview with Princess Anne, resulting in Alan going off on a bit of a rant, calling the audience of the show stupid, putting up with this pointless programming, and demanding more. He leaves the BBC studios to try and rally the people, but only manages one far-off supporter. Because of this, he's locked out of the BBC building, ending another Alan run on the BBC, since as of now, there are no plans for a Series 3.
I need to do, in line with the founder of the BBC, Lord Reith, you probably haven't heard him, educate, inform and entertain.
And remember your pass.
All right, four things. So can I go in?
No.
They won't let me in. They won't let me back in the BBC.
Not to say that this is the end of Alan. Since then, he's managed to get a second series of The Oast House, with a third series coming at the end of August. He also has had a successful live show taking place after the COVID pandemic. And if that wasn't good enough, there are plans for a third Alan book, Big Beacon, set to release in October. Although, unfortunately, the book does not have an American distribution as of yet, so hardcore Alan fans, like myself, will be forced to import the book and audiobook. Speaking of, it's time for the most complicated part of getting into the Alan Partridge story, if you're an American.
I'm an American.
I first learned about Alan thanks to the wrestling video podcast show Old School Wrestling Review, or OSW. They had showed Alan clips and made a few references, but for the longest time I never really got the jokes, until they did a special review episode of This Time to address the fact that they referenced him a lot. At the time, I was lucky, because HBO Max had just launched, and it just so happened to have most of the BBC Alan stuff on it, including Knowing Me, Knowing You, and I'm Alan Partridge. However, as of now, with Max, that's no longer the case. In fact, the only way to access most Alan content is with a VPN. Knowing Me, Knowing You can still be found on Region 1 DVD for pretty cheap. However, I'm Alan Partridge DVDs in Region 1 are a bit harder to find. It seems like Series 1 was plentiful, Series 2, not so much. This is also a case with all subsequent specials like Scissored Isle or Places of My Life, but you can usually find them on YouTube, along with the radio and TV versions of On the Hour and The Day Today. You can also find the Alpha Papa movie, again just titled Alan Partridge, in the States for dirt cheap on Blu-ray. Now, as for the most recent stuff, this time can actually be found on the BBC streaming service BritBox. However, for whatever reason, it's only the first series, not the second. Audible, on the other hand, is a great source for Alan content, as it carries not only the original radio version of Knowing Me, Knowing You, but an audio-only version of the Knowing Me, Knowing You TV series, as well as an audio version of the Christmas special. You will also find the first 2 Alan autobiographies, and of course, the Oast House podcast. Speaking of Amazon, the recent live show, titled Stratagem, can be found on Amazon Prime Video. Now, with that being said, I would never encourage anyone to pirate or download a show illegally. I myself have imported much of the Alan catalog on DVD, but I also wouldn't expect anyone to make that much of an investment on a new show like this, especially one as varied and out there as this one. My advice, start with Knowing Me, Knowing You, and if you think you can get behind the type of comedy and this type of character, go nuts. Not many of the series needs to be watched to understand the other aspects of it, but it certainly helps to have that background. I hope you've enjoyed this little toe dip into the world of Alan Partridge. I really didn't want to go too deep as to give you all just a taste to get you hungry for more and possibly hunt down the different shows and experience them for yourselves. If you have just discovered Alan, or were already a fan, leave a comment down below of your favorite moment, or how you first discovered it. And don't forget to leave a like if you liked the video. Until next time, I'm the One Nerd, and I hope you have a good day.
Oh.